Eve if that's your thing. And even if it's not your thing, happy Christmas Eve, because it is actually objectively Christmas Eve and we're live and we'll probably get a few people here listening to us and watching us and stuff. But eventually a lot of people will watch the video and we love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I'm here with Jim McCormick. And Jim, we are here to ring in week 17. That was lame.
No, I forgive you. It's just a time where wordplay is difficult during the new year. I just want to say, like the Commanders stole my soul. But let's keep going.
Can I tell you something else that's makes it difficult to enunciate? It's Christmas Eve. People who are listening. People listening on the audio. Let's see if we can. Are we hearing that on the audio? That's a little icy, a little old-fashioned. I got a little old-fashioned going.
To be clear, what's really happening is he's like a chain wallet guy. He's got like the chain on his pocket, and it goes around. It's like the old, the old skater thing. That's a chain. But I have a Topo Chico. Producer Dave's addicted to, apparently. So.
Yeah, we got a whole backstory about Dave Piper.
He's got like a problem, like a Topo problem. It's like,
he's in support groups for Topo Chico. That's something else. So yeah, I will be progressively getting boozier as this show goes along, and I'm sure everybody will be thrilled for that. We are going to have a few people here live with us, and we love you. Say hi in the chat. We got Henry, and we got Jaquan, and we got Bill. And there's going to be more people here as well. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a fun little preview here of the of Week 17 in the NFL. We'll talk about our picks against the spread. We'll just talk about how we think the league looks and where teams are and stuff like that. We're brought to you by DraftKings, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them later on. But we do thank DraftKings because without them, we wouldn't be able to do this fine show. I believe last week I may have bested you by a couple of games. Is that right?
Yeah, we did a little inburst kind of week. I think we just, I just wish it was
9-7, 7-9. Yeah.
Yes.
But we both went 0-2 on our best bets. So there you go.
And they weren't that close, I want to say, for me. So.
Yeah, it felt like maybe the Bills were going to get there eventually, but then they just absolutely did not.
That hole was difficult. Yeah.
So let's preview these games. We've got two games actually. We'll call it tomorrow, but I should probably say Wednesday because people will be consuming this at various times, and maybe they'll be consuming it after the Wednesday games have happened. Are you excited to watch games on Netflix?
I am. I mean, I just love that the NFL is now the NBA and they play every couple of days. I mean, I guess
that's pretty cool.
Man,
you can't believe the number of guests and like various industry people who complain so hard about these games. Like, well, man, I don't know.
I'm not complaining about it. I just think.
No, I know you're not.
Just listen. We have an underexposure issue with the Chiefs and Travis Kelce, and
it's
fair.
Time.
I understand this. This is all a marketing campaign. This is for the podcast that he has. That actually is a podcast about his next podcast.
Yeah,
so
it's fair. It's fair, and I actually like him. I like he's a guy. I actually think he's pretty cool. I think his brother's pretty cool. All right, so it is the Chiefs. They are visiting the Steelers. And we have both, I think, backed the Steelers in back-to-back weeks in tough road spots where we thought they weren't getting enough respect and the defense would be able to stand up. And very clearly for 2 weeks in a row, they got the exact amount of respect that was disrespect, and they did not cover, and they frankly weren't close against the Ravens last week. It was somewhat sobering, he said, having a drink of an old-fashioned. But I would say that a lot of people are going to make an excuse, no George Pickens. And now in this game against the Chiefs at home, we will have George Pickens, it sounds like. For you, does that – don't worry about the bet, but just does that move the needle in terms of the competitiveness of the game?
Well, I mean, he seems like the story. I mean, I was in a supermarket, and there was a gentleman with a Steelers jacket, and he was next to me. We talked, and he was all about George Pickens, this gentleman. He said he's the only thing that matters. I was wondering if he knew about T.J. Watt, but that's okay because what I mean is even to the casual fan now, I think it's an identity thing that there's this, like, Pickens on, Pickens off thing. Yeah. And it's interesting because not to speak to the spread, but the anticipation of this game still has this life, even though we've seen 2 straight weeks of where, one, the defense didn't stand up, and 2, the offense looked like wilted without that attack. So it's like and it looked really like if with a different quarterback, I might not be as susceptible to buy this kind of stuff. But with Russell Wilson, he just seems kind of fragile. He needs his blankie. Like
maybe, or else it's correlation and not causation. And like we'll find out. Sure. If George Pickens is your reason that you're going to be competitive in a football game, like he's a good player, but he's
that's what I'm wondering. Like, is it possible?
Knucklehead. he's an absolute knucklehead. He's as likely to do something stupid for the Steelers as he is for the Chiefs.
He's also a splash play guy where it's like it's not like this consistent engine part where you're not missing AJ Brown here where it's like I can just throw it to you. So I wonder if what I'm trying to say is I wonder if that distillation point is misreading the fact that number one is that the defense has been worked on and Watt doesn't seem himself. So I wonder.
Yeah, the defense seems
at the point where there's too much investment in the Steelers still being the Steelers, and like this, there's this jokey like it's always going to be close with the Chiefs thing, but the Chiefs have been pretty good lately. Like,
yeah, it feels like they're turning it on.
Yeah, exactly.
Joey Porter's missing this game. The Steelers just in general on defense aren't the same in the secondary. They're beaten up. The Chiefs are favored on the road here. I think it's 3, right?
Yeah.
I would be on the Chiefs. I don't think it's like outrageous because there's a world where, I mean, we know the Chiefs offensive line is their Achilles heel. If they wind up losing, it's going to be because of pressure, but, and there's two great bookend pressure guys who could conceivably wreck the game, but I would be on Chiefs -3.
I had this at 4 because I just thought it would be that Vegas-y line. I don't know what that means. It's a way to say something, but I did wonder if this would be 3.5, like to make it more difficult for you. Like before I'd seen the line, I was like, wow, that really feels like they're going to try to make this difficult on me. So this feels more like a playoff line, like tight and easier, meaning like it's interesting to me how they set this. So,
I got you. You're talking, words are coming out. I don't know that they said. All right, the Ravens, the team that looked awesome against the Steelers last week, they're headed to Houston, and Houston hung around with the Chiefs like teams tend to do, but in the end didn't have enough gas. I guess the way I'll frame this is I kind of wanted to talk to you about the Texans offense because there is definitely a wing of like smart football analysis on social media and stuff that has absolutely turned on Bobby Slowick.
Yeah.
From last year when he was the reason that he invented CJ Stroud and he was the next head coach somewhere and watch out, to this year, oh great, another wide receiver screen, huh, Bobby Slowick?
Sure.
Like there's a lot of that going around.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle, so I'm going to offer you a false dichotomy. But which is it? Like, is he a forward-thinking McVay clone, good, play caller, or is he just a slappy?
I hate to say it, but it's feeling slappy-ish only because,
really?
Yeah, I suppose because maybe it's because I get so frustrated watching the Eagles not have a drop-back passing game or the ability to go under center and like be operating like normal people in the NFL and like win in those conditions where you kind of can't stop us. Whereas it just seems like there's kind of gimmicky. They're relying on these screens and so much play action. It just seems like in year 2 you would be taking the governor off a little bit, and it seems like it's been added. And I understand there's been an erosion. You've lost. You really haven't had Dell all year. Blah blah blah. I do get that maybe that clickbaity terrible feeling too, where I'm like something's missing from this offense that isn't just the players.
That's a wonderful way to say it. And it may be actually, sometimes clickbait is true. Some clickbait is true for a reason. I think I read they threw 4 wide receiver screens against the Chiefs and they all pooped themselves. They all did bad. Like they didn't gain anything. And that's, you should be, especially against like a press man team like the Chiefs, there should be something in your head when the first one doesn't work that says, wow, there's no room. What are we doing? It may to me be personnel though, because Dell is now obviously hurt, and that's too bad. It was a terrible injury. They haven't had Diggs for 2 months.
Sure.
It's Robert Wood. It's Xavier Hutchinson. Like, I think maybe this is personnel related. It's probably for the purposes of right now, in which this game is going to happen on Wednesday. Maybe this is just an argument about how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin because they have what they have. Stroud made 2 bad mistakes in that Chiefs game as the result of like running around and trying to be heroic, which I would be mad at him about, except for he made like 12 unbelievable plays as the result of him running around and being heroic. It's kind of where they are. And I don't think that's play calling. I think that's more, you don't have anybody who's open. And I'm going to can I do a Jimmy 365 jam? Yeah. Because I say all that, and I think this is a lot of points. This is 5.5, the Ravens on the road.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, what would the look-ahead line have this had been if it had been the Week 1 matchup?
Oh.
Push?
Yeah.
Texans -2?
I want to say pick or, like, maybe because the Lamar thing, like, very small. Like, or Texans probably because they had a lot of – they were the helium team. So
you're right. They really did. I I'll go. There's just a lot of ways for the Ravens to win this game by a field goal. There's ways for them to do better than that too. But I mean, the Texans are good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be on Houston plus 5.5. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the points as well. It's really the secondary. I really buy it. Like you were talking about personnel issues on offense for Houston. Well, there's personnel reasons why this defense is so good, and they have like multiple Pro Bowl talents in the secondary, which I think is like not the anecdote for Lamar Jackson, but like he's going to make something magic happen. These guys have like magicians on that side, which I kind of like.
They lost Jimmy Ward though.
They did, but what's his name? Who's the safety? They have another veteran safety who's playing amazing. I'm sorry.
Is it? Yeah. It's not Petrie?
Yes. Yeah.
Jalen Petrie. All right, and then there's a Thursday night game too, because like you said, it's the NBA. We got to play every night. The Seahawks are traveling after a crusher of a loss against the Vikings, in which they came back. They had that game won, and they actually put on a pretty great defensive effort in that last drive against the Vikings. And Sam Darnold, I mean, at some point, do you just go, oh, yeah, he's Kurt Warner. We can stop having debates about Sam Darnold. We'll get to that game in a little bit. But, like, they're crushing Sam Darnold. He's a half second away from being in the hospital. He somehow gets that ball off and wins the game on the pass to Jefferson's, which is my way of saying Seattle has nothing to be ashamed about for losing that game. No. But they are on a pretty cold streak now.
They are.
They're visiting a cold place and a team on a very, very cold streak. We got 3 straight road favorites. This is Seahawks minus 3.5. What's your lean there?
Yeah, I'm leaning Seattle. I still buy that this team is good at football. I understand Chicago continues to have a good defense, but I don't know. I buy Seattle has a formula, and more importantly, I think their defense is really well built to give like Caleb Williams a lot of problems because like we've talked about this. They sit back, like they're going to sit back and wait for him to make mistakes, and I think that's kind of like he's still in that space. So I would give more points here, so I like that.
Me too. I mean, it feels weird in these first 3 games to be taking 2 road dogs. It's not usually the path to profitability, but I thought this was going to be 6. I think this is we're going to have a theme here that there's some just sort of weird smelling lines where it's like, does Vegas? They're smarter than I am. Do they know things I don't know?
Right.
And so like I think it's a weird one. It's not going to be my best bet because I'm scared of it, but I think I will play Seattle. So we shared a brain on these first 3 picks, and seems like we have a general same sense of how things are going to go. We'll get to the rest of the Week 17 slate in just a second, but first, let's say thanks to DraftKings. I want to personally say they're such a great supporter of everything that I do. You hear my spots for them on the podcast. We play DFS on DraftKings. If you want to say thanks to the show and you want to maybe have never opened a DraftKings account, it's a great way to do it. They have a promotion going on where if you open an account, you use the promo code HarrisTube when you sign up. That indicates that you heard about them on this show, and then maybe they'll sponsor this show again next year. Then you make one $5 bet, and if you get it right, you get $150 in bonus bets. And you can make that $5 bet on something that's very likely to happen. You can make it on, like, Colts money line against the Giants. Or, you can make it on a pretty good bet, and then you'll get $150 in bonus bets put into your account right away. So use that code HarrisTube, all one word. If you've never signed up at DraftKings, it does help us out. We're going to get to the Saturday games in a second. Let's say hi to some people in chat. I see Tom and I see SDB, who says that there's big underscore energy in this video, which is very clear. Big underscore energy. Is that right? Are you giving some big underscore energy right now?
It's real big. I'll even share. I'll share. We just looked at this earlier. I'm going to share. This is a 4th grade gym with lasers.
The thing about the lasers is that it's how could you have known 20 years ago when you were in 4th grade that you were going to be doing Skype gags that have similar background effects? How could you have known that?
I bought retro.com, the URL in 1998, and I'm going to sell it one day. So
is that true? Do you own retro.com?
I did, and then there's a legal battle, but it's cool. I did sell actually Draft Hub, this random site, and I was like, "Who bought that?" And the WNBA bought it. It's their private draft site, so it's interesting. So yeah.
All right,
moving on.
That I see Tim, I see Lewis, I see Bill, Jason, DeBaze Runner, Ty. I am so happy to have you all here on Christmas Eve. Welcome. I'm having a beverage. I'm having a sip of the beverage. We're gonna do 5 minutes of fantasy later in the show where we'll try to answer every single question that gets asked, because we don't, as you might expect, have the usual huge crowd on Christmas Eve, which that's completely fine. I'm sure people are going to watch the video afterwards, and I'm also sure people are going to listen on the podcast. Hi to all of you. But hey, Jason, for the moment, how about a like spike just for the, smaller crowd that's in here right now? We'll get a little promo in the algorithm so you get ready to do a like spike, hit the like button in 3, 2, 1. Give us some likes. Appreciate that. I see the hearts. I see those hearts. Here we go. Nick, thank you for a great season. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I am excited to continue to keep talking. And I mean, Jimmy is going nuts with the Skype stuff. I love it. All right. We have 3 games on Saturday. Let's talk about all 3 of them because they are, as they say, national window games. Do they still say that anymore? Or is that something that old men say?
In like a window ad, maybe. I don't know.
All right. Well, here we are. Our new sponsor. We're open for business if anybody needs their window company sponsored. We have the Chargers visiting the footy pajama Patriots. And we could spend all day talking about the Patriots. Obviously, they're fantastic. But this game obviously seems way more about the Chargers. And dare I say, in that Thursday night game, which I believe I did get that game right last week, they're losing. The Chargers are losing at halftime.
Yeah.
They do that crazy fake punt thing. They're not fake. They fair catch a kick and get the free kick.
The weird dicker kicker thing. Yeah.
The dicker kicker, and suddenly looked baller. Looked like in the second half they looked like you're supposed to look, and made Bo Nix look pretty bad. And on offense, suddenly they turned it around and they looked like the Charger team that people have been promising us for a really long time.
That's exactly right. They looked like the team that people said they were, but when I would watch them, I was like, I just see a lot of, like a couple, it really was just like a couple J.K. Dobbins runs, and everybody was like, this team's amazing. And I was like, wait, God. I just didn't get like what the repeatable identity was, but this was, Justin Herbert played like how podcasts talk like about him. Like
in the second half, but not the first half.
The second half. Yeah. No, or it depends what podcast you are on. Like in the first half, he was bad. He was there's no excuses for this bad play. The second half was like, wow, like putting it everywhere, he was star making it look, he made normal guys look good. So that was really kind of a revelation to me. I hadn't seen that team. And before, I think there was an excuse also because it was like the schedule had set them up for that too. So I was about to send like a dangerous text because that was the best bet for me. Like in the second quarter when they were like 21-7, I was like, Taz, what's up with this best bet streak? And thank God I didn't send it because I also looked at it and I saw Sean Payton's face and I was like, I don't know about
the dangerous text in which we will screen cap it.
Like your Bo Nix analysis in my head, I was like, he really hasn't done anything yet. And then
we'll get to Denver in the next game, but we've got a big Bo Nix reality check in that game too. All that said, I agree with everything that you said. In the second half, I think the worry is that the first half has looked more like what they've looked like all season. Isn't it weird that they're coming to New England? I say coming as though I'm there. I'm in Los Angeles, but they're going to be in the cold, cross country, big game. They got to keep winning, all that stuff. And the line's only 4.
Right. This feels like the Seattle game to me. It's the AFC version of the Seattle game where it's like, I think this team, there's enough evidence that this one team's pretty much a lot better. But then I saw Seattle almost lose in overtime to that same, meaning like not to cross streams, but to say that good teams get competitive sometimes. We saw it last week with the Bills and Patriots. So it's difficult. Maybe they're saying that is a factor. I thought we've not that we've gotten over that, but it hasn't been as sticky, that whole you can't play in the West or the road thing.
That hasn't. I think that's fair. And we've had some short, this is a long week for the Chargers, but we've had some short weeks that haven't really led to anything. We've had some like cross country travel, especially west to east, that hasn't led to anything. Right. That's a really great point. Like all that stuff, because of the pampering of the players, maybe just isn't as much of a thing anymore. I love that you mentioned that point.
Jet life, right? Like,
maybe there's some Drake May respect in there. Like,
sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's why. But this is another one that just smelled weird to me. So I'm on the Chargers.
I am as well. I had it at 6. I didn't think but I thought there'd be like some Herbert residue in the aura, but maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe his cologne isn't very good. I don't know.
Well, we got another sponsor possibility there.
Kirby.
All right, the aforementioned Broncos are visiting the Bengals in what is actually an absolutely huge game for the Bengals, and a game that to Denver doesn't probably mean all that much, because I believe the Broncos can still lose this game, and as long as they beat Carson Wentz in Week 18 against the Chiefs, then they still make the playoffs. Wow. So I don't know if motivation really matters. Probably what matters is the question that I'm going to ask. Well, definitely what matters is this question, which is to say, who's better? Forget the point spread. Which of these two teams is just better?
Denver's better, just because the defense is so good. Like, I think Denver's better.
Interesting. I think my answer is that Cincinnati is better.
Okay.
I think Cincinnati's defense has been a little bit better lately.
Yeah,
they're playing get the hell back, and hell is not the word you're supposed to use there.
Sure.
They're on defense. They're playing GTFB, as they say. Yeah. And I grant you, like, if I'm measuring the defenses, Denver's better. Denver has Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain against Jamar Chase is going to be.
The quarterback gap is so big. I'm probably wrong. Yeah.
But the offense, talk about that. Talk about Bo Nix. Talk about what you learned about Bo Nix in a national TV game. Oh, a window game on Thursday night.
I didn't know he turns around so much. It's like, dude, you got to look at the field. He keeps turning around, and when he does turn around, he actually doesn't have a plan. He does this thing where he basically he is a wildcat. He doesn't play the wildcat. He's a wildcat. I thought. Look, I haven't seen a lot of Bo Nix, and I was sold on this like ninth-year senior who just knows exactly where to put it. And he's I thought it was going to be some kind of like jumbo Brock Purdy thing where it was just like all timing and here's the ball, and like that Sean Payton liked this precision thing, but he's kind of a wild man, and I guess Payton is really great at reining guys in and like siloing them, but the NFL is going to make you have to beat them at some point, and when he did have to make plays. Like, this not that special Chargers defense, like, really invited him in to just be like idiocy. I'm sorry, he's a kid, but he's also 29, and he did my taxes, so. They were terrible, by the way, Bo.
Bad job. Didn't get anything on the return. What the hell, man? No refund at all. That second half, I can't remember who skeeted it. It was actually on Blue Sky. Somebody said, "Oh, I get it. The difference is that one of these quarterbacks is good."
Yeah.
Like that felt like the revelation. And to be honest, I watch all these games. I saw Bo Nix all this time, and the people who were like Bo Nix for Rookie of the Year there in the middle of the season, they had a point because he was a system guy. He was managing well. He was getting touchdowns in the red zone at an unusual rate. Right. That because they don't run that much and all that stuff. But the issue comes down to exactly what you said. I agree 100%. When a team finally pushes the button and says, okay, you can't be a system guy anymore. There are 2 or 3 throws in this second half that if you make them, you're going to win, and you don't, you're going to lose. He doesn't seem like he's going to make them. And that's why I'm on Denver plus 3.5.
Yes. I love it.
I thought it was Bengals -3. I don't love this. The tickets are even apparently, but the money is strong on Denver, which doesn't really guide me. I think it's a half point off this line. It's a fun game to watch for sure. What's your lean here?
I'm way worse because I was like Denver's a better team, but there's no way I'm betting them. So
you're on Cincinnati.
Bengals, because I just think Joe Burrow throws the ball really pretty. So
yeah, he does. I mean, do you think Surtain runs around with Jamar Chase? Because Chase, they would. I
don't know enough about like I don't know. I know he generally doesn't trace all the time, but I don't know.
Well, especially in the slot
I'll check, because Mike Clay might know that, but I don't.
They put Chase in the slot when they need to get him away from outside coverage quite a lot, and I don't think you'll get Surtain in the slot.
Yeah, so I don't think you will.
Yeah. All right. The last game on Saturday is Cardinals at Rams. We have a James Conner question for sure. Could a point spread actually be affected by a running back being out? I think yes. I think he's their best player.
It's also like such an identity thing. Not only their best player, but like they don't have any other even approximation of that. Like they didn't
he's
even like
been so good.
Well, he's so good too, and like apparently all of his backups are like they're like little people that go into a trench coat to match him because they all don't seem nearly as big as him. Like,
yeah, Trey Benson's pretty big, but he wasn't active, and all the other guys were tiny.
That doesn't work for my joke, so let's do this. Yeah.
All right. This was better to me when it was like 5.5.
Yeah.
I liked it when it was, to be on the Rams. But at 6, I will also take it. This is the Kyren Williams game. Every year, you get the Rams home game against the Cardinals, and Kyren Williams gets 200 yards.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's going to go after Saquon Barkley. He just needs like 7 more games against the Cardinals.
At home.
I just think a Jonathan Gannon team at some point just realizes Jonathan Gannon's their coach, and like he keeps handing them business cards. It's like, you're my coach, and I'm going to give the points.
All right. I am also giving them at 6. You know what? We have a big game to talk about next, and we have a guest to come in and talk about it with us. Yeah. But how about we do 5 minutes of fantasy in the meantime before we get there? Does that sound fun?
Yeah,
so
right.
If you've asked a chat question, fantasy question, ask it again, because I'm not scrolling back to get it. If you have a fantasy question, we got 5 minutes here. We're going to try to answer your championship lineup question. I know that's why some people jump along and in. Marshana says Calvin Ridley or Travis Etienne. That's a good question. That's a good question.
I'm going to go with Ridley because I just think maybe the ball's moving better. They were like out of it last week and then came back. Like they can move the ball now without Levi Levis.
I will, Ridley makes the one big play last week early in the game, actually.
That's what it is.
But that's in his wheelhouse to make the one big play. I probably slightly err on the side of Ridley, but boy, that's a great one. You start out with touchdown. All right, Henry says Jaylen Warren or Khalil Shakir in a PPR.
Ooh, Shakir. I just think the PPR thing works. It
didn't work last week. And Warren, I actually am ranking Warren above Najee Harris in a full PPR this week for the first time in a while. I believe. Now, they were trailing, but I believe it was 40 snaps for Jaylen Warren and 19 for Najee Harris.
Right.
So against the Chiefs, the script could go that way. I think it's another really great, like, you guys are dead on with these because they're tough to weigh in on. I'd say Shakir if you want ceiling and Warren if you want floor. That's kind of a wimpy way to say it, but I'm going to say it. Debase runners, I see a running back question. If you have a single position question, real quick, go over to harrisfootball.com because I've ranked all the running backs against each other. Tim says, Tim, go to harrisfootball.com and narrow down your receivers and then come back and ask because I've already ranked the receivers. Lewis says Keenan Allen or Zach Charbonnet, and that's a question that obviously presumes that we don't get Ken Walker. I didn't mention it when we talked about that game, but Ken Walker left what it looked like a high ankle sprain to me. So let's assume for the moment that we know for Thursday night it's Charbonnet starting and it's Keenan Allen.
I'm going to go Charbonnet. I mean, I know that there's been some life with Allen, but that seems like also touchdowny. Whereas Charbonnet's like, they just give the ball. They're next. They really treat him like he's Walker when he's there. So
I think I could go with Charbonnet too. That is a very fair question. Chris has a receiver question. So go on over to harrisfootball.com. Jason says pick 2, Charbonnet, Keenan Allen, Alvin Kamara, assuming he plays.
Yeah, assuming he plays, I'm going both backs. And the cool thing is you'll be able to filter it out by having the Saturday game. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't think Kamara's going to play, though.
No,
I really don't. I think you're going to be fine.
They've elevated the practice squad stuff. When they do that kind of stuff, it doesn't seem great.
Ben asked a running back question, and Ben, if you go over to Harris Football, you'll see that I have Connor not ranked. I also don't have Trey Benson ranked, so we can do it. Where do you think Trey Benson falls relative to Tony Pollard if he's active and James Conner isn't?
Okay, relative to Tony Pollard, I would have Tony Pollard ahead of him.
It stinks because they keep starting him in games and giving him tons of work, and then he's like, "Ow, my ankle hurts," and then he just sits down.
Leaving games.
It is really frustrating. I might go Benson. I haven't done the full workup. Here's what I promise, Ben. When we get to, unfortunately, I have to make the decision on Saturday. But if we get to the point where we know Benson is in and Connor is out, I will make the change on the running back ranks. SDB says Isaiah Pacheco or DJ Moore. I think that's very clearly DJ Moore now.
Yeah. The Pacheco thing is the Hunt thing is not going away. So.
It was so annoying last week. Tim says a Breece Hall or Ladd McConkey.
I'm still going to go Hall. I know it can be frustrating, and McConkey's been great, but I'm going to go to the back. So
Yeah, two really good options who I would mostly be advising people to start for sure. I think I got to go Breece Hall. The one worry with Breece Hall was, is he hurt? He's giving up so many snaps. Last week, it was 8 snaps apiece for the 2 backups and like 50 for him. So that's enough. I think I'm
and not so different than the Pollard fear. Like, could he leave? But yeah.
Right. Let's see. A debased runner says, does your ranking of Zach Charbonnet assume that Ken Walker is out? Yes, very much so, because Charbonnet is very high in my running back ranks. And if Walker is in, where would Charbonnet fall? He would fall into like kind of borderline useless territory, which is where he was last year.
Yeah, they always split. They tend to, when there's a dude, there's a dude.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't run very much because they were trailing the whole game until they were ahead at the end there. But the great part of the way Walker was used last week was they just dumped it off to him over the middle over and over and over again. It definitely worked. All right. There's 5 minutes of fantasy for you. I think we got to all the questions. We love you. Thank you for asking them. Appreciate that very much. And now it's time for Gary.
Yeah, go Birds. Yeah, last week didn't happen. Late bye week. That's weird. Go Birds. Also, you mentioned Windows earlier. I never got. Talk to me. Yeah, send me a text, but don't give my number out online. All right, go Birds.
All right, Gary. Gary insisted on Jim taking the Eagles as one of his best bets last week. And to be honest, in Gary's defense, he did not expect Jalen Hurts to get knocked out very early in that game on a what, let's face it, is an ill-advised scramble to get his face smashed into the ground. This is part of the issue with Jalen Hurts. If this is what he needs to be an effective player, then there's a lot of danger involved.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't lead with your head. I don't even like to use my head like maybe 20, 30 minutes a day. You know what I mean? Whenever I have to, particularly when I'm watching the Birds and I'm screaming, and I'm just like, yo, dude, Jalen Hurts. Yeah, dude.
My favorite part about Gary is that he says, you mean, twice in a row. You mean.
Yeah, I mean.
It's really good. They get the Cowboys, so your favorite team against your least favorite team for sure. And this line, I got to say, has been crazy. And I thought maybe the craziness was related to like leaks about Hurts's availability for this game, except it kept going up on Monday. Like it was, I think, 9 originally. It got as high as 10.5 in favor of the Eagles over the Cowboys on Monday. And then, but as of our talking, it's back down to 9 again. When, I mean, you know the Philly media ecosystem pretty well. There really hasn't been any news about whether he can play or not, because it's just going to come down to, does he clear the protocol?
So what happened? Yeah, dude. First of all, my friend.
All right, let's get the Jimmy version.
Yeah, Birds. What I think is happening is people really think that the Eagles are like that last week was all Hurts. That like it was all just Hurts' absence, when really the defense kind of had its first like gotcha game in a long time, right? Like with exposure and letting Daniels really gash them deep. And like, this idea, you don't throw to Quinyon Mitchell, not to say he's exposed or anything, but it was like, maybe start throwing at the rookie, or meaning start exposing some of these gambling zones that Fangio plays. I don't know. Maybe the story is that Vic Fangio's not the best coach in the history of time, and that you can score on this team. But we're not seeing that lesson in the line. It's not being reflected in this matchup. So I don't know how much Jalen Hurts even matters in the line. I think it's just a straight up, people think the Eagles are like a force.
And so I guess if that's what it was, then the methodology is that the Eagles are a force. People got out ahead over their skis up to 10.5 on Monday, and then everyone else went, wait, they're not that good. We're not going to.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I don't think anything. Okay. I don't think it's anything like insidery or Sharpie about like what Jalen Hurts' availability might be. I think it was more that they could steamroll.
Okay. I mean, there's question of whether CeeDee Lamb can play. There's obviously a question of whether Hurts can play, because we're recording this on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, but it's very early in the week, a day earlier than we even normally do, and so we don't even have practice reports. I don't know. I'm probably apt to just say, one of the better teams in the league against not a good. I mean, the Cowboys, we got burned by them last week.
We did.
They're hanging in there. They're playing for Mike McCarthy, all that stuff. They're still not good, without Dak Prescott. So, like, I think this line should be very big myself.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's just a larger sample size type line, meaning like they don't really believe last week last week's Cowboys made that big of a difference? Because, again, you've asked this question before, but context-wise, what would it be if we didn't – what was the look-ahead line for this? Do you know what I mean? Like, would it be that different? You know, like, even without –
I think it was 9.
So it's what I mean.
Think it was,
and we just learned that, like, a Pro Bowl quarterback got knocked out and a team gave up 5 million yards in the fourth quarter, and it didn't matter. And the other team beat this sparky superhero, whatever he is, like Baker. What I'm saying is that almost is not factored. Not almost. It's just not factored into this. So
because people are willing to forgive the Hurts thing,
Sure.
overlook the Philly defense, and look at the larger sample size,
Yes.
all of which is probably fair. It sounds like you want the Cowboys here, though.
I don't. Yeah, I'm going to give them the Birds. Yeah, first of all, that
All right.
that flip Monday night was I sold some paint and I bet it all on the Birds.
There's the reverse jam,
Yeah.
the Jimmy reverse jam. I'm also on the Eagles at -9. Here's another line that makes me feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The Carolina Panthers, who I got it right. Like, it was very disappointing when they couldn't beat the Cowboys and they kind of didn't show up, and Bryce Young looked bad and like he had looked his whole career. And I was kind of just willing to say, well, I mean, maybe we're learning about the Cowboys that they aren't so bad and we should be more sympathetic to them, but we're not. And against the Cardinals last week, boy, the Carolina offense was really, really good. And yet they're going to Tampa and they're more than a touchdown underdog, which I just don't get. I don't understand. This is a pretty long sample size of Tampa fattens up against mediocre to bad teams. Carolina, over the sweep of this season, has obviously gone from being a bad team to being pretty okay. Yeah. Like, I don't understand a huge disparity between these teams.
No, I mean, like, I think Kyler's better, but I'm saying they feel like they're in that Cardinals tier of, like, they can, on a good day, they can show up and beat you, and most days they're the 22nd best team in the league or whatever.
I'm not even it's funny that you say that about Kyler, because Kyler and Bryce Young last week, they kind of did the Spider-Man pointing meme.
True.
They're the two shortest quarterbacks in the league. They both ran around. Bryce Young ran way more effectively than Murray did in that game. And I mean, that was, gotta say, the best game of Young's career.
Right.
These two teams, I saw them play an overtime game in Carolina like a few weeks ago. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Right. Well, also, so you talked about the Eagles and their trend. Like, part of that trend was that this Carolina team moved the ball really at will for a while between like Adam Thielen's ghost and Joe Hubbard's good. So I guess my point is that, like, I've seen this Carolina team be okay, and I don't see this gap. This gap is wild. It's amazing to me. I had this at 6, but that's a big difference. Like,
dude, I had it at 8. Yeah. I mean, I had it at 3 rather. Sorry,
3.
It is at 8.
3. Wow. Okay, that's amazing.
I had it at 3. I say on a neutral field, I like the Buccaneers by like 1 or 2.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
It is at 8, and I'm going to be on Carolina.
It's like a peak price. You're paying for like some version of the Bucs that only exists. I don't know, like a Rico scream. Can I?
Man, that was something else. Can I reiterate that the people in Vegas are very clearly smarter than I am, much smarter than I am. Yeah. They know something here that I'm just going to be like, here's my money. I am handing you my money because this is. I feel like a sucker, but I'm on it. All right. We got a bunch of games we can go through very quickly here. So all I really need is your pick. Yeah. We got the Jets visiting the Bills. The Bills are a 9.5 point favorite.
This is like the big game that we thought was going to happen last week. Bills take care of this, in my opinion. So,
my opinion, I would also be on the Bills. Bills feel awfully beaten up on defense suddenly again. Sure. But like, yeah, I'm going to be on the Bills here. I don't trust the Jets at all. The Colts are visiting another New York team I don't trust. It's too bad the Colts figured out very late in life this season that if you throw it 7 times or whatever, you have a better chance of winning.
Yeah. I mean, look,
they might have been fun.
I want that stat to always reign, where it's like when the Colts run 52 times, they're 4-1 this year or something, and when they don't, I want somebody to jump in and explain why that works. But I would always want to say there's too many points, but I've backed the Giants twice in a row now, and it's been awful. I'm just eating. I've been hanging out with Tommy DeNito, whatever his name is. I'm out of here. I'm giving the points.
Tommy DeNito. Why didn't I think of that? That should be what his nickname is. He's pretty neato, but I don't think he's playing. It sounds like it's going to be Drew Lock. I'm going to do what I did last week with the Giants, which is give a big pile of points to the other team. I'm on the Colts -8. We have a line that moved a lot after Monday night. The Raiders are visiting the Saints. Everybody got a look at what the Saints looked like against the Packers. At least it won't be cold in Week 17, but it still will be Spencer Rattler. And the Raiders are somehow a road favorite, 1.5 points as of our recording this.
Yeah, this is really difficult for me because their teams are both terrible. I'm actually going to give the points. It sounds crazy. I'm going to give them because
I'm going to give them.
This is the cigar game where they beat a bad team and all smoke cigars.
All right. Well, that sounds awful because cigars are terrible. Obviously.
They do that. That's what the Raiders do this once a year. So
nice. All right. So we're both on the Raiders there. Feels terrible. Don't bet that with your own money, please. The Titans are visiting the Jags. And this line started at Jacksonville -2.5. And it got immediately bet down to 1. But it's still Jags favored. It's another one that makes me feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
They're both terrible. I'm just going to take the points because one of them at least has some sense of identity. The Jags, like they're ordering takeout all the time, just stashing it in their cars. Like they all know they're fired. Like it's just like they're like Doug's car stinks of just like old sandwiches.
I'm on Tennessee here too. I got to say, probably the team I've gotten the most games wrong on all year has been the Titans. I can't help it. I can't possibly be taking Jacksonville when the line is close at all. And then another one. I just feel like this is what what have the Dolphins done, especially in the cold weather, to be a 6.5 point favorite in Cleveland?
I mean, they were dominant no, they've never been dominant. So I don't know.
I don't get it. I mean, DTR was awful, and but the Browns defense stuck around with the Bengals for most of that game.
Yeah.
I just don't. How are the Dolphins, this conservative, like constipated version of the Miami Dolphins, how are they a 6.5 point road favorite against anybody?
Particularly with like the things that I think that Cleveland can still institute on defense, which is like Ward taking the top away, and then like Myles Garrett just whatever he does, like throw refrigerators at people. Like it's just they have enough singular talent to make this weird. It's too big of a line. And Jameis Winston against it just sounds fun.
I mean, Jameis Winston's probably not playing though, is he?
No. It's DTR.
Yeah. DTR. Yeah. All right.
But the speeches.
Yeah, his speeches are going to eating a W. That's what we all need in our lives on Christmas, is to eat some W's. All right. And now we have 3 fun games to wrap up the show that we will spend a little time talking about how we think the actual football might go. The Packers and Vikings, it's a blast. I can't wait to watch it. The Vikings feel like a superpowered offense. The Packers, to me, don't quite feel like they even want to be. Like, they maybe could be, but they just haven't uncorked Jordan Love nearly as much as Sam Darnold. Like, Sam Darnold, wow.
Yeah.
These have not been easy. Like, that throw to win the Seattle game was crazy. And meanwhile, I think if Green Bay had their way, they would run 30 times in this game. My concern for, like, just kind of imagining how this game goes is that at some point you're going to need to do more than run. Yeah.
It's strange how they've it's the intention of it. I got a really good look at them to open the season, and that's a long time ago, but it's still that way, where they want to lead with Jacobs and be this like punch you in the face team, when really it's all about like, I don't know. I like the dynamic, the volatility that Love brings. And it's strange, because if you told me before the season who's going to be the wild man, and like statistically the wild man who's like doing the things that he's doing, like tight windows and making guys like Jordan Naylor matter and making Addison a star, that type of stuff, I would have been like, oh, that's obviously
Love.
Yes. And it's really this guy who suddenly is exciting. And the New York Giants are just ready to make a Hard Knocks mistake again. I can't wait. Like he's going to get so much money.
Well, they're going to have the 1 pick, so probably not. But somebody's going to make a big
trade it for Sam Darnold. So
maybe. I mean, here's the thing. If I were the Vikings, I just pay him. Who cares? You just saw with Kirk Cousins, it doesn't matter. Like, the money isn't real. I would just keep him around, but like they probably won't. So, yeah, like the caveat that I give for how I imagine this game going is, yes, at some point the Packers will probably be pulled out of wanting to be conservative and smash them and control the clock and all that stuff. But I do kind of feel like Jordan Love, as a like a reformed crazy person, has it in him to be wild and make a bunch of plays, and we love those receivers. So this is why it's so fun. Like it's not a game that I would feel awesome betting on. I want to watch it. What do we have for a spread? It's Vikings -1.5, which is basically Vegas throwing up its hands and saying, "Yeah, good luck." What is your feeling if you're going to make a play?
I'm so fickle, but like Darnold's done enough recently where like I am thinking differently about it. Like I keep waiting for the shoe to drop, but it's late and he's still here. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm so pop committed to like Justin Jefferson and all my fantasy teams, but he's been really fun to watch. Green Bay has to be shaken into like being down to be exciting, and I don't like that. There's like an A.J. Dillon poster all over this facility. I'm going to give the points.
I am also going to give them. I don't feel strongly about it. I had it Minnesota 2, so if it's 1.5, I'll pick Minnesota, but I just want to watch it. Sunday night, the Michael Penix-led Atlanta Falcons are headed to a very exciting team. Jaden Daniels healthy and playing. Boy, the difference between, you can just talk for a second about the two performances in the two Eagle games of Jaden Daniels, because it felt, we said all along, it felt in retrospect that he just wasn't healthy for the first one. And I guess he was healthy for the second one.
Yeah. And, I will say, not that like Cliff Kingsbury needs like a publicist. He probably does. But like the whole Cliff thing, like it actually ends up being the guy was hurt, because we saw it happen in the Pittsburgh game directly after so it was a completely different game plan. Their willingness to expose him, not just running, but like in the idea of, I'm not going to say Pat Mahomes, but this idea where he creates this middle ground where you're like, you have to make the choice, and he's going to make you make a choice, and you're often making the wrong one because he's so fast. But it's also, he makes throws that like shouldn't happen to somebody that fast. He's scary, and he's going to be here for a while. And I just like that they have Dan Quinn, and that whoever's good at offense is going to keep getting hired. So good luck with that, guys. So.
Well, except for it's Cliff.
I know. And so it might be somebody better next time, which I don't like. So I don't want to talk about that part. So.
Or else maybe Cliff just hangs around, because most NFL teams will go.
And he's just like he found some really nice place in like I don't want to talk about.
He's such a douche.
Yeah. Yes. My favorite is, if you ever see when he was the coach and he had this huge oil painting of a lion, and he goes, "I'm a Leo." Like
I said it on the podcast on Tuesday. When you get a dude as mobile as Jaden Daniels, and he's scary, and if it's like, I don't think you need to build a lot of like built-in runs with him, but if it's a 3rd and 8 in a game they really need, he's gonna. He's going to go get it. And you put that together with the deep ball is sick, man.
And like, McLaurin's absurd, but they have speed. Like the funny thing is shoving Zacchaeus in your face, because that was last year's Eagles number 3. And then obviously they have whatever.
But let me continue my point about Daniels, which is to say, am I not just describing Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of am, right? I mean, it's can get anything with his legs whenever he needs it, and throws a ridiculous deep ball. That's MVP stuff.
Yeah, it's scary.
I had this line at Commanders -4, so it's my only no play of the week, because it is -4.
Yeah, maybe I'm too close to it and I just saw it, but I think that was real, what happened. It wasn't just like a division surge. I'm giving the points. So
we didn't even talk about Penix. You probably didn't get to see too much of that game.
No, I didn't.
So I watched it, and it was definitely calmer. Everything was just better. And you can tell that defenses feel like, all right, Penix isn't a great runner. He's not Daniels, but he has some level of mobility, and he definitely ran to throw a little bit in the game. And It just meant that the Giant safeties had to play back just a little bit further, and it kind of just opened. Everything could breathe a little bit better. In the end, they're killing him, and it was mostly Bijan Robinson. So I don't really know, but like it was a good start. It was a good beginning. And I can imagine it working out okay. And then lastly, the final crazy making line, which is the Lions going to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And what did you? I'll just say, I hate to talk about these window games with only a point spread in mind, but what did you think before you looked at the line that the Lions in their current state visiting the San Francisco 49ers in their current state was going to be?
Like right under like a 5.5, 6. Like,
oh God, I thought it was going to be 9.
I thought it'd be 6 at least. I thought it was going to live in the 6 range.
There's a lot of respect here for the 49ers that after having watched the way they played against Miami last week, I do not share.
Yeah, I misread it. I just was speaking in boomerisms. I was like, they're going to punch them and do all these things that they didn't do. And I just thought
my best bets
that's what the Dolphins are like made to do in December. And they ended up being the team that like ran it and leaned on them and pushed them around. And if you looked at the just the team stats, you'd be like, oh, this one is the Niners. But no. So, yeah. And
there was some quitting going on defense at the end.
Yeah, that was bad. That was bad.
I don't like the Niners in this spot at all. Now, I guess there is an idea that maybe, because it's only Lions -3.5 as of our recording this, maybe, and it's Monday night, so every other game will have already happened, and there's some feeling that if the Vikings lose,
yes,
if the Vikings lose, but don't the Lions play the Vikings the last week?
They do.
Yeah. So I'm not sure actually of all the permutations.
Incentive-wise, if they ever have to not.
Right. And if maybe that's part of the hedge there on Vegas's part. Once again, I will reiterate, they are much smarter than I am. Much smarter than I am. But my God, I would take the Lions here all day.
Yeah. This is we're about to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about this again. So.
All right. So let's look at the chat briefly. Let's look at the chat. The Fox man who comes on Sunday morning all the time. Fox made it live here. I just want to shout out Fox because he's a longtime listener, great guy. Lewis, hi. Capital One AM wants a New York City event. The thing is, we did one. We did a meetup. Not this summer, but the summer before in Brooklyn. If you didn't come, I'm sorry about that. Want another one, though. It says, and tell Jim to come to the other one. Maybe you were there.
I'll come.
We've got Steve said that he guessed Lions -8. And given that I guessed Lions -9, we're sort of sharing.
If San Francisco is being treated like they're still good, and I keep doing it, so yeah.
Yeah, and they're really kind of not, which probably means that I'm flat wrong, but I'm going to ride it. And Luis just says he's here to wish all of us a happy holidays and thank us for all of our tips and advice over the fantasy season. Sweet. And that's a great way to wrap up our look at the chat. How about we want everybody in the chat now, list your best bet of the week. And if you get it right, we'll shout somebody who gets it right out at the beginning of the Week 18 show, because we're doing a Week 18 show.
I mean, it's the best week, by the way.
Sometimes the handicapping isn't so great, and we don't play fantasy, but there will be meaningful games, and those will be very fun to preview. So in the chat, tell us your best bet of the week. Down in the comments, tell us your best bet of the week if you're watching the video after the fact, and we will pick someone to shout out. Jim, what are your two favorites that we've talked about?
As I foreshadowed there, it's going to be the Lions. It's just what is going on here. And another what's going on here, I'm another 3.5 point road giver here. The Seahawks. I just think they're a much better team than the Bears. So
there were too many for me to choose from. I considered both of those, and I'm on the same side as you, and I feel like crazy that I don't understand the line on both of them. And yet I found two others that I felt even crazier about. So I picked two others. I'm going to do Colts over the Giants. Like, there's almost no number. I don't think the Giants care at all. They want the one. And so I'm fine there. And then Carolina.
There's a lot of room for error there.
Prove me wrong. And if Tempe goes crazy and Baker doesn't make mistakes and, prove me wrong, it's okay. But I'll take there's a lot of ways to cover 8, and especially with Carolina playing as well as they are. So that is it for our Christmas Eve show. Wait, I got to finish the rest of the old fashioned. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. All right. I took the rest of the old fashioned. It's gone. For those of you listening, you just have to trust me. It's gone. There's the proof. There it is. There's the ice. Thank you to DraftKings very much for sponsoring us. Again, you can make one $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets back into your account instantly if that bet works out. You have to download the DraftKings app and use the code HarrisTube when you sign up. It's a nice little feather in our cap. It maybe makes them likely to sponsor us again next year because we love doing this show. I want to thank everybody in the chat who came on Christmas Eve. That was super nice of you to be here. I hope you had fun. We had a lot of fun bringing you the show. Dave Piper brought all of his equipment to Ohio to be with his family and produce this show, which is lovely. And Jim, you spent an afternoon watching your very young nieces and nephews get drunk. So
yeah, Yeah.
that was something anyway.
I mean, look, the underscore empire isn't going to save itself. Okay. So.
Well, you're great. I appreciate you so much. Thanks to everybody for watching. We love you very much. Have a wonderful holiday, and we will, in fact, be back here next week.